So far, we tested every feature within the homepage, from the booking to the login page, and there's no other features below. So the next thing that we're gonna do is test the menu and the locations pages. So starting with the menu page, we're just gonna load it normally. And as you can see, it just loads a normal menu page with the menu and with some categories on the top. None of this is clickable, and we don't have any parameters in here to inject and play with. So we're just going to turn on our proxy and load it again to see if we can find anything interesting in Burp. So far, nothing is that interesting, so we're just going to continue forwarding this. And these are just CSS files, so they're styling files that are loading a certain font from a host that is called fonts.googleapi.com. So it's nothing to do with our target. This is very important. You need to make sure that you do not test stuff that is outside of the scope. So our scope is this website. So anything that is outside of this website should not be tested. So that's why we're ignoring all of this. And here we go, we have another request that is made to our host. Again, nothing that interesting in here, so we're gonna forward. And now we actually have something interesting. So we have a request in here that is being made to some kind of an API to a file called loader.php. We have a parameter name f, and the value that is sent to it seems like a file name. So it starts with a /, which we know from the directory traversal vulnerabilities. A / means we're starting to specify a file path starting at the base directory. And we have a file name that is called reviews.php. So this is a very, very interesting request. And therefore, I'm going to right click and send it to my repeater. And in here, I'm just going to send it as is just to see the normal result that I would get. And if I render this result, as you can see, we're actually going to get reviews because it's requesting reviews.php. And we have the review content and the name of the person that submitted the review. So this is really, really cool. But what I would do at this stage, once I see this is a very strong clue that I should test for directory traversal or local file inclusion vulnerabilities. And as we know, the way we do this is by doing ... go back as many files as we want, and then test for a file that exists by default on the target, like etc password. Now I covered this in details in a full section, that's why I'm doing it very quickly in here. If you don't understand what I'm doing, then please go back and revise that lecture or that section. So we're gonna send it, and as you can see, we get nothing. And as you saw in the previous section when I covered these vulnerabilities, just because you got nothing from your first request does not mean you should give up. There are so many ways to bypass security and to actually get this to work, so you should really test everything that I showed you before, and you should go ahead and use the intruder again as I showed you before. But once you do all of that, you will notice that this parameter is actually not vulnerable to a local file inclusion or a directory traversal vulnerability. Therefore, in that case, I'm just gonna go back to its original form and just think, what is being done in here? So right now, this loader.php is requesting another file that is called reviews.php. So maybe it's implemented properly so that I can't actually load any files outside of my web root. But from my notes that I took earlier, I have something saying I should test later the admin.php page. Because when we loaded this, we didn't get an error, we simply just got redirected. So let's see if I load this page from here, if it's actually gonna load for me. So let's just go ahead and type admin.php and send it. And as you can see, I get nothing. So if you remember in the robots.txt file, it actually was called admin and not admin.php anyway. So let's try to load the admin path as is. And once we do that, this time we're actually not getting redirected, but we're getting a page saying we're not allowed to view it. So that's really, really good. So at this stage, we're getting closer, we're getting better error messages, and at least instead of just getting nothing, we're getting an error message telling us we're not allowed to load this page, but we know that there is a page that is called admin, and I can access it using this URL. So again, just being curious and implementing that bug hunter or researcher or hacker mentality, I want to know, how is this page knowing that I am not the admin and I'm not allowed to see this page? It's not really asking me to put a username and a password, but somehow it's able to know that I do not have permissions to view this page. So I'm going to try to load it from a browser instead of loading it from the repeater in here. So I have my proxy on. I'm just going to turn it off to let the flow through. I'm going to turn it on again. I'm going to go back to my website here and I'm going to paste the path that we just copied. So we're simply loading the same file, loader.php, and we're trying to go to the /admin. I'm going to hit enter and that's going to be intercepted in here. So that is fine. We're going to forward. And as you can see, this time there is another request that is being sent to the admin.php this time. So initially the request was being sent to loader.php /admin, as you can see in here. But right now, after we sent that request, we have another request being sent to the admin.php. And this request is sending a parameter called add token, and the value of this is blank. So now if I forward this and keep forwarding the irrelevant requests, you will notice I'm gonna get the same error message that I got in my repeater, which is saying I am not allowed to view this page. So my hunch tells me that if I send this again, and let me show you, this add token value that is being set to nothing needs to be set to some kind of a password or a token that is supposed to give me access to the admin. So if I manage to find a token or a value to send in here, I will actually be able to access the admin page. So in this case, I would actually again take this and save it in my notes in here. So this is actually related to the same thing, to the admin page.php. And this time we know that if we give it an add token in here, we might actually be able to log in as admin. Now we don't know where we're gonna find this. So usually I would go and continue pen testing the website until I get more clues about the add token. But before I do that, I would go ahead and run a quick search to see if the add token is mentioned anywhere within the website, within the JavaScript or within some hidden elements that load on the website. And to do that, I'm simply going to copy this text, add token, and I'm going to go back. We're going to go to the target tab. So this is what I said we're going to use in the future. And as you can see, this target tab has mapped the website. So it actually has mapped every single link that we clicked and every request that we sent. So it basically analyzes every request and every response that was proxied through burp. And that's why it's very, very useful, because I can use the filter functionality in here to search within all of the data that was exchanged between my browser and the web server. So I can search in here for the add token because I'm interested to see if this was mentioned anywhere in the code and if I can find any clues for that. Now the filter feature in here is only available for the pro version of burp, but it's actually very, very useful. If you are serious about becoming a bug hunter, then I highly recommend getting the pro version. And if you're working as a pen tester or if you're working for a company, all you have to do is simply ask your company to purchase a license and they will do it without hesitation, because this program is very, very useful and it will really enhance your bug hunting capabilities. So we're telling it that we want to search for add token and we want to search in these files. So you can select more files if you want, but we're keeping it the way it is in here. We're keeping all these extensions the way they are, and we're going to click on apply. And as you can see, we have all of the requests and the files that contained add token. And this is just the request that we are playing with right now. And this is the add token. So there's nothing interesting in here. This is the loader.php file. So again, if I am looking for it in the request, I can put it in here and look for it, and there's 0 matches. If I want to look for it in the response, you can see we have 1 response in here. And again, nothing that's useful in here. It's just in the script. It's mentioned in here. And the third occurrence in here is in a file called script.bin.js. So it's a JavaScript file. And as you can see, we have a 1 match in here. And let's look at the match. And as you can see, this, even though we don't know what JavaScript is, you could guess that var means variable. So they're defining a variable that is called add token. And you can actually just see the value in here as a string enclosed by 2 quotation marks. So that is very, very interesting. And even if you don't know JavaScript, your intuition should tell you I should send this in my request and see if that's actually going to allow me to get access. So let's go back to my proxy, and I'm actually going to stop intercepting just to let this flow through, just in case there is an expiry on it. We're going to turn on the interceptor again, send it, and the first request is okay. It's just asking for the admin, so we're going to let it go the way it is. And these are just requests outside of our scope. And we're going to paste the add token in here, and I'm actually going to copy all of this. I'm going to stop the interceptor, and I'm going to paste that request in here along with the add token. Make sure everything is correct. Hit enter. And perfect. As you can see right now, you're only getting a message that is saying there used to be a flag here. But basically this means in a real life scenario or in a bug hunt, you would have been able to access an admin panel or some kind of admin resources that normal users are not supposed to access. The term that just means that there used to be a flag in here. This is a normal practice that is done in capture the flag competitions and even in job interviews if you apply for pen testing jobs, where in order to test your skills, they would put flags in certain locations within the application and you have to test them. So the fact that we're seeing that there used to be a flag in here means that we actually managed to gain access to this panel, and in a real life scenario, you would have been able to discover a broken access control vulnerability where you are able to access functions that normal users should not have.